What if the greatest thing you ever do in your life is something nobody ever properly thank you for? Not because it wasn't important, but because the moment you explain it, it would stop being a sacrifice and start being a transaction. There is a boy in anime who understood this so completely, he let his own brother hate him for it. And there is a boy from Argentina who understood a quiet version of the same thing. He let the world call him shy, boring, not a leader, while he quietly became the best to ever play the game. This isn't a video about football, and it isn't video about anime. It's about the piece of your life you sacrifice. It's about the price of being great without needing anyone to notice. Here's the question that's going to sit underneath everything in this video. If nobody claps for what you give, did it still count? Let's find out, starting with a massacre. In the world of Naruto, there is a character named Uchiha Itachi. For most of the village, he is the villain, the prodigy who slaughtered his entire clan in one night, his own parents included, and spared only his younger brother, Sasuke Uchiha. The village hated him. Sasuke spent years training with one purpose, to kill Uchiha Itachi for what he did. But here is what almost nobody notices on a first watch. Itachi didn't do it out of hatred. He did it because his clan was planning a coup that would have plugged the entire village into a civil war. A war that would have killed far more people, including his beloved brother Sasuke Uchiha. He was given an order, stab the coup by any means necessary. He chose to carry out the massacre himself, rather than let it be done by strangers, and spared his daughter, a brother, on purpose, because he loved his brother so much. Then let he, the entire clan, call him a monster. He never explained himself. Never was the need for it. Not the village, not even for his younger brother, Sasuke Uchiha. And this is where the story changes. Itachi didn't just sacrifice his family, he sacrificed his own reputation forever. That's the genius, talented prodigy. Now he's being called the villain of the village, the person who slaughtered his entire clan, so that Sasuke would have something to live for, the purpose, and the purpose was revenge, a reason to keep him training, to keep him surviving, to keep moving forward. If Itachi had explained the truth immediately, Sasuke might have collapsed into grief instead of growing into strength, into the powerful person he is now. So Itachi chose to be hated by the one person he loved the most. That's not weakness, that's the most expensive kind of love there is. Love that accepts being misunderstood forever. If it means the other person gets to be okay. Now hold that thought because 5,000 miles away from that anime studio, a very similar decision was quietly being made on a football pitch. Lionel Messi was born in Argentina into a working class family. As a child, he was diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency. We are not that rich that we can be diagnosed with that thing. His body simply wasn't producing enough growth hormone that a normal person have. The treatment was expensive. His family's local club in Argentina couldn't afford to fund it for a long time. So at 13 years old, Messi left his home, his extended family, his entire life, and moved to Barcelona, where the club agreed to pay for his treatment in exchange for signing him, because he was very talented in football. 13 alone in a new country, learning a new accent, missing his people, missing his family, his body still catching up to other kids his age. While other prodigies were being built up as future stars with loud personalities and bold declaration, Messi barely spoke in interviews. He let his feet, his magic speak, and that his talent was so great that he didn't use his mouth. His talent speak louder than any word he can. This is where psychology gives up a name. What both of these figures were doing. There is a concept called intrinsic motivation. Doing something because the act itself matters to you, not because of the recognition attached to it. Most people, especially when young, are wired toward the opposite, extrinsic validation. means they do the thing for validation, for recognition. They want applause. They want, I told you so. They want to know the people what they did. But both Itachi and Messi operated almost entirely on the eccentric role. Itachi never got to clear his name in front of the people who mattered the most for over a decade of story time. In the entire anime, at the last, he got to clear his name. But everybody treated him so badly. Messi, for the first half of his career, neither kept getting compared unfavorably to more expressive players. He was called cold, a machine, a robotic player, a player who lets his talent do the talk instead of word. Neither the Itachi nor Mercy corrected this thinking. They were their own, and this narrative kept going on. Not because they didn't care, but because correcting it would have meant needing it to be corrected. And that need is exactly what they had learned to live without. Here is the hard truth underneath all of this. Quiet greatness is often mistaken for a lack of ambition. People assume if you are not performing your efforts loudly, you must not be trying that hard. But sit with this for a second. Performing effort and sustaining effort are two completely different skills. One is destined to be seen, the other is destined to survive being unseen. One is talent and one is hard work. It's the same reason for the loudest person in a group project. It's rarely the one who actually finishes the assignment and the other one who delivers it in front of the audience. So people assume that the most of work is done by the one who has represented this assignment. But nobody knows that while that guy who was working on this assignment at 2 a.m. while every else was asleep. Quiet greatness doesn't need witnesses. That's exactly what makes it exhausting and exactly what makes it real. Now, here is where both stories take a turn nobody fully expects. Itachi's sacrifice was almost wasted. Sasuke spent years hating him, chasing him, nearly destroying himself in the process of trying to avenge a betrayal that was actually protection. He was misunderstood. He misunderstood that his brother was protecting him. Itachi died of an illness he had been hiding the entire time. Another sacrifice nobody around him knew about, without ever fully telling Sasuke the truth in a way that landed until it was almost too late. Mercy's stories had his own version of almost too late. In 2021, Barcelona, the only club he had ever known, the club he joined at 13, could not afford to keep him due to financial regulation. In a press conference that the entire football world watched, Messi broke down in tears trying to explain that he had done everything he could to stay and it still wasn't enough. The most decorated player in the club's history, sitting in front of a microphone, unable to finish his sentences. That wasn't a moment of failure. It was the one moment the world got to see what all that quietness had ever been holding on. And this is the deeper truth. Both stories are pointing at quiet people are not emotionless. They are the people who cannot express themselves fully, like the introvert people. They are people who have decided, consciously or not, that their emotions are not the most useful currency in the room. A Taoist tear, the ones we later learn he shared the night of massacre, weren't for the audience. Nobody saw them until their story chose to reveal it. Mercy's tears at the press conference weren't performed either. They were the first time in over a decade that that robotic mask cracked in public, and it happened not because he lost, but because he was being separated from the one place he had given everything to, the place that nurtured him, made him who he was. Quiet greatness doesn't mean the absence of pain. It means the pain doesn't get to set the terms of how you show up. It's a completely different thing. Love of one's fate, not passive acceptance, but choosing to meet whatever happened, including the parts that cost you, without needing to be witnessed or validated by anyone else. There is a saying that the things done without display, without an audience to perform, are often the ones closest to virtue. That meaning isn't something the world hands you in exchange for suffering. It's something you build privately, that nobody sees, that has no audience. Sometimes it's invisibility, regardless of whether anyone else finds out what it cost you. Nobody knows what cost you paid for that. Itachi built his meaning around a brother who would hate him for the rest of his life. Messi built his around a game that for most of his career undersold exactly how much himself he was pouring into it. Here is the most Here is the moment both stories were building toward. Itachi finally gets his truth acknowledged, not through a grand speech, not through public validation, but through Sasuke, slowly, painfully, piecing it together on his own years later, and having to live with the weight of having hated the person who loved him the most, who sacrificed for him the most, was suffering in silence, just to protect him. Mercy finally gets his, not through a single trophy, but by carrying the full weight of an entire nation's hope into the 2022 World Cup. At the very end of his career, after every he will never win it, narrative had already been written. Neither of them needed the ending to prove them they were great. They already were. In every quiet year, nobody was paying full attention. But it's still worth noticing that when the world finally did look closely enough, both stories confirm what patient people already suspected. So here is the question to sit with. What have you sacrificed that nobody ever truly acknowledged? Think about it. What you have sacrificed? You are sacrificing your talent by doom scrolling, by sitting across, watching Netflix, watching any site, watching Chrome, any website, anything, watching movies, or doing unnecessary thing, doom scrolling, or simply by on the bed, you're doom scrolling, you're watching anything, but you're not taking action. That cheap dopamine that you earn every day through doom scrolling, through Chrome, or any source of pleasure, that cheap dopamine is not worth it. So what you are sacrificing, not to make you bitter about it, but to make you notice the fact it wasn't seen doesn't mean it wasn't real. Somewhere right now, there is a version of you doing something quite that doesn't worth it doing. So change yourself. Show up here. Showing up for someone without announcing it. Carrying a weight you have decided not to explain. Because explaining it would somehow make it smaller. That instinct isn't weakness, it's the same instinct that made a fictional shinobi accept a lifetime of being misunderstood and made a real footballer let his feet speak language his mouth never needed to. So your talent speaks louder than any words. Your sacrifice doesn't need to be shown to the others. It can be quiet or it can be hidden forever. You will be misunderstood forever for your life. Maybe greatness was never about being seen doing the hard thing. Maybe it was about doing it anyway, especially when no one was going to see. The world remembers trophies, the world remembers dramatic reveals, the world never remembers your efforts, your sacrifices, your silence, your tears, that loneliness. But the versions of Itachi and Messi that actually built those legacies. The 13-year-old alone in a new country, the older brother, despite his age, acting mature, carrying a secret his little brother would rather hate him for. Nobody was watching those parts. That's exactly why they matter the most. So back to where we started. If nobody claps for what you gave up, did it still count? Yes, it always did. If this one hit you, and this video, think about it. What are you sacrificing? You're sacrificing your youth, your health for the cheap dopamine. So please, brother, wake up. Wake up to reality. Because nothing ever goes as planned in this accursed world. Think about it. You have made many plans, but nothing ever goes according to you. And you give up. You tried one thing, for 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, and after 1 week, you suddenly give up. You try new thing, but again the same problem. So start small. There would be many hurdles, many obstacles. Maybe you feel too shy. Maybe your family, maybe your friends, your neighbors, or anybody, they will mock you. But you need to be resilient. Start your action and doesn't care about what others say. Just be yourself and do the work. And do the so much work. Pour yourself into that the world will remember you. So be fulfilled, be happy. Take care.